Okay, I think we are ready.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for joining us for today's webinar, Taking the Stage, Activating and Engaging Community. I am Kim Rawlinson, and I'm a community health worker with the Center for Community Health Alignment. And I, along with my colleague Mike Young, will be facilitating today's session. This webinar is the fourth webinar and a fourth and final webinar in a four-part series that we've had going on for some time, looking at equity through meaningful community engagement. And we are so happy to have you all with us today. And we're going to get started. If you would, please put your name, your role, your organization, and your state in the chat. That will be greatly appreciated. And if you would like to share one thing that you want to do more of this year, that will be great. And if we get an opportunity to do so, we will read some of those out. We will be starting momentarily. We did have a great response to this webinar, so we want to try to get as many people in the room as possible before we officially get started. But just an overview of what we plan to cover today. We'll share a little bit about the Center for Community Health Alignment, who we are and what we do. And we have a dynamic group of speakers here with us today. We have Vanessa Logan with NESA in Your Neighborhood, Navigate, Explore, Serve, Sustain, and Advocate. We have Leslie Roth with PASOS and Ashley Thomas with the Hive Community Circle, who will share different components of programs. We're looking at programs today, and they're going to share different components of programs and what have made them successful and meaningfully engaging with the communities that they serve. And then we'll have a breakout session, which will be an opportunity for you to engage on a more intimate level with the speaker. You'll get a chance to choose which speaker you want to learn more from, ask questions. And that will be a 30-minute breakout session. And then we'll all come back together and we'll have a reporter from each group share what you all discussed within your session. And then we'll have a wrap up, and we have an evaluation at the end. We would love to hear your feedback about today's session. So please complete the evaluation at the end of the session today. Thank you all for sharing. And I see Tiffany Cardwell in the chat says she wants to do more community service and public health improvement. Thank you for sharing that. Ann Sanderson says she wants to bring order out of chaos and travel to Greece.
Nice.
Let's see if there are any others. Iris Gadsden, I love to travel more this year.
John DeLomba says he wants to continue to stick to his fitness goals. You will.
Okay, we're going to move along for the sake of time, and let me let these folks in. All right, so our learning objectives for today is that we will connect how health equity is advanced through meaningful community engagement. We'll understand the evolution of community-based programs and organizations, as well as be able to describe key elements of 3 functioning programs that successfully engage with communities in a meaningful way. So a little bit about who we are. The Center for Community Health Alignment, also known as CECHA, is a community-focused organization within the within the Arnold School of Public Health at the University of South Carolina. And our mission is to use evidence-based models and meaningful community engagement strategies to co-create solutions alongside community leaders, influencers, and champions to really address those health inequities that we know our communities face. There are 3 core initiatives within CECHA, which are outlined here on the slide. PASOs, which means steps in Spanish. They utilize the community health worker model to serve individuals and families within the Latino communities by connecting them to services and resources. And today you will hear about one of their programs. Leslie will share about one of the programs of PASOs. And then we have the Community Health Worker Institute, which supports the advancement of the community health worker workforce through capacity building efforts. And then finally, there is equity through meaningful community engagement, which we refer to as EMCE. And this core really focuses on advancing meaningful community engagement strategies to really help communities lead in decision-making and change efforts within their communities. Next slide, please. So more specifically, equity through meaningful community engagement seeks to engage and empower communities using these 2 strategies: bridging the assets, knowledge, and resources of communities, organizations, and systems to better understand and address inequities, as well as develop, co-create, and test innovative approaches to address inequalities and enhance authentic community engagement. And EMCE is one of our fairly new core initiatives, which this webinar series falls under. So as I said earlier, we have a dynamic group of speakers who will each share with you briefly about their programs, and then you'll have an opportunity to dive a little deeper, which each speaker or one of your choosing, you'll be able to choose which breakout session or which speaker you want to engage more with after each speaker has had an opportunity to share a little bit about their programs. So they'll give you a little teaser, and then you can go learn more. And something I meant to share earlier, this session is being recorded and will be available on our website in a few days. So you will have access to the recording as well as the slides and information shared today. It will be available on our website in a few days, and we'll be sure to share that website with you at the conclusion of today's webinar. So now I'm going to turn it over to Mike Young.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you, Kim, and thank you all for being here. This is really exciting to have such a great turnout. We had a really high number of registrations, and just bringing on some of the most influential, powerful, inspirational people that we know. I'm excited to introduce you to, because I've worked with each of them, and I'm really excited to share and connect them with you. And hopefully you guys get a lot of benefit from this interaction. So to tell you about Vanessa Logan. She goes by Nessa. Vanessa Mills Logan is the founder and CEO of Nessa in Your Neighborhood, which embodies the principal responsibility to navigate, explore, serve, sustain, and advocate for what makes community and its people thrive. She is a results-focused social impacts consultant and change agent with proven ability to define needs, structure idea, to concept strategy plans, and a local, national, and global bridge builder for individuals, families, and organizations. She is an effective communicator, providing individualized group, face-to-face, and virtual support for positive outcomes. And I just absolutely love her style. So pay attention, not just to what she's saying, but how she says it. So here we go. Take it away, Nessa.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so now I'm extremely nervous. Y'all, I am such a quiet person. You believe me, right? Okay, no one believes that at the very beginning, but listen, we're gonna jump right in here. Social capital. Guys, listen, social capital is the greatest commodity and resource for thriving a community. So what's the biggest currency with that? Trust. It's gonna take trust, right? Trust is the currency that is needed to make it happen. And so some ingredients that we're talking about the foundational steps for the buy-in, which is the next slide. First of all, people trust. People trust the clear and mistrust the ambiguous. That says a lot, guys. It really does. Second, there are 4 key ingredients to an outcome of desired results. And third, trust is what goes back and forth. It's reciprocal, right? Very, very reciprocal. The meaningful ingredients and what you see right here on the next slide, I like to research. I'm never one to create a brand new wheel for what purpose. No, you take the wheel that exists and you build on that wheel. And so you see here the University of Minnesota Extension as well as a social impact point, and add in a little sprinkles of sugar. And that's going to mean something to you guys in a little bit. And that's necessary. So the community engagement, as well as asking questions and listening. Consistency, it helps to build that trust, guys. And then we share results widely before, during, and after a project. So in your neighborhood, there are several methods to community engagement that I did. And I'll say way back when, but that's gonna tell my age, right? We're not gonna do that now. You know, maybe later on when it's birthday time, I'll tell you how old I am. But listen, there's so many lived experiences that's gonna come from corporate America to family engagement, everything. There are several methods to a community engagement, from contacting community leaders to having a conversation with families and individuals about their desires and their need to get across a bridge. What is a bridge? A bridge is going to be different for everyone. So that's going to be, it could be financial, it could be family, relational, it could be health, it could be career, any bridge. And we have an assignment. Everybody put your hands up. Yep, thanks for volunteering. Yes, we all have an assignment to get people across this bridge, get everyone across this bridge. So we always need to ask questions and listen. For an example, I met with a CFO of a Fortune 500 company, as well as participate in community events and listen to those that are being transparent and identify barriers. So it goes from one extreme to another, good, bad, indifferent, doesn't matter. We have to combine all those things. That's what we're going to do to mixture. And there are some very consistency with what we need to do with volunteerism. When we volunteer, we learn a great deal because we're being very observant. We're being asked, and we need to understand how it applies to what we do and how we can make it better. You know, I guess maybe my first volunteer was, I was with my grandparents and I sold peanuts at the flea market. And yes, I did. And so many people come right there just to purchase old peanuts, but I want to learn so much more. We just continue from there. It went on to be an instructor, project manager, program consultant, all of that stuff is really good. There are honest results, which has led to our organization to not only being requested for local community projects, but also international projects as well. In that next slide, Mike, what we have is the trust creates bonds. And we understand that if we look at that, creates the bonds between neighbors and friends, and also bridges between groups with different social backgrounds. For one, I did not like to cross a bridge. It was a lot to go across a bridge, but now when we use that bridge as an example of what we need to go through, you go from one end to what? To the other. There's some things in between that bridge. That's going to be the water. There's various things or components in that water. And trust between communities and organizations or systems, it creates the links to important resources. So we have the bridge networks, we have the linking networks, the bonding networks. What's in the middle of that? Put your hand up again. That's you, that's everyone. Okay, there's engagement, there's trust, there's efficacy. All of that is important for us to do. So guys, what we're going to do in our breakout session, I'm going to share with you one of the projects, and that project was Nothing Ordinary for Teens, and that was a virtual talk show by, for, and about teens. So let's bake a cake. Listen, I have my mid. Does everyone have their mid? We're going to bake a cake and we're going to make this happen. We're going to talk about that. So please prepare to lay everything out. We're going to be very open and it's interactive. If y'all okay with this, it's going to be very interactive. So let's bake this cake, guys.
That was awesome, Nessa. Thank you so much. Everybody give her some snaps, Liz, I can see. I couldn't even keep up with you. It was too awesome. So, but that was, yes, thank you so much for sharing all that. Such important stuff. Awesome. So now we're going to transition into our second presenter. Leslie Roth is going to be talking about Connections for Child Development, the program at Pasos. So her background.
Mike, you're on mute.
Was I on mute that whole time? Oh, okay. Well, I said thank you so much, Nessa. That was awesome. The snaps. I thought you guys did the snaps.
Oh no, we heard that. Is when you got to Leslie.
Oh, okay. All right. So yes, here comes Leslie talking about the Connections for Child Development program. And Leslie Roth is the coordinator of the Connections for Child Development program at Pasos. She has many years of experience working in community-based programs supporting families and children in Central America, New York, Chicago, and South Carolina. Leslie has worked and provided leadership in various settings, including child development education centers, home visiting programs, early intervention programs, and public school systems. She is passionate about advocating for equitable access for education, healthcare, and community resources for Latino and immigrant communities in South Carolina. She has a master in social work from Hunter College School of Social Work and a master of education from Bank Street College of Education in New York City. She lives in Columbia, South Carolina with her husband and 3 boys. All right, Leslie, take it away.
Thank you so much, Mike, for that introduction. Can everybody hear me? Good.
Yes.
Okay. It's so nice to be here. Thank you for having me. And I hope that we can make some connections across these presentations. I really enjoyed that, Nessa. And I think that there's a lot of cross conversation that can happen between us. And I'm excited about that. So as Kim mentioned earlier, Pasos means steps in Spanish. And we're a community-based organization of bilingual and bicultural community health workers, or promotores de salud in Spanish. And we serve the Latino and immigrant communities all across the state of South Carolina. And our vision is healthy Latino families contributing to a stronger South Carolina. And since our beginning in 2005, our mission has been and is to help build a stronger South Carolina by supporting Latino families with education, advocacy, and leadership development. We have strong partnerships across the state with healthcare and social services providers to assist them in creating more access and higher quality services for our state's growing Latino population. So in 2005, Pasos began with a focus on reproductive and maternal and child health, helping Latino families identify, address, and remove barriers to having happy and healthy babies and families. But if Mike, if you want to go on to slide 2, over the years of working with moms and babies, the Pasos team started hearing from our participants, and Nessa talked about listening to people's stories. And that's exactly what the Pasos team started to listen and talk to our families and our participants. And what they started to hear was that our participants needed support with once babies are born, with then raising young children and accessing resources for their children in those early years of life. But they found that families just did not have the information about or access to the parenting, early childhood development, and childcare resources in their communities. And why is this an equity question? Well, early childhood, or the years from birth to 5, is just a crucial developmental period for all children. When the brain is going through its most important growth and when vital attachment relationships are being formed between children and their caregivers. But because Latino children often face greater risk factors for healthy development, some of these being high poverty rates, lower levels of parental education, and then difficulty accessing routine healthcare for sure. This creates a gap in services and access to services for Latino and immigrant children. So, in South Carolina, Almost 70% of our Latino children live in low-income households and Latino children nationally are twice as likely as other children to not have access to health insurance. In addition to that, Latino and immigrant families have additional chronic stress factors going on in their lives often, whether it's language barriers, families that are separated by the migration experience, national borders, families living in with mixed immigration status households, and undocumented parents often live in fear of being noticed by systems and individuals outside of their immediate communities. This can cause them to delay or avoid seeking services, including those early childhood supports and social and emotional and behavioral health care for their children. So in 2011, so PASO started in 2005, around 2011, PASOS began a years-long process of listening and seeking information about how to respond to our participants' felt needs around early childhood. So they began meeting with leaders from across the state, a broad coalition of child-serving agencies across the state, to gather information about their needs and what they were seeing in trying to serve their Latino families, and also to brainstorm collaboration strategies. So out of the discussions from those meetings, PASO's leadership team then interviewed our site coordinators around the state, our community health workers who are already working all around the state and who are embedded in local health clinics and other social service organizations, asking them too for their stories, trying to get a really big picture and understanding what are the needs of our families and our service providers to try to connect families with resources during those early childhood years. So in addition to the barriers I mentioned earlier, through these conversations, PASOS really discovered that families have a couple of other things. A fear of maybe services are going to be high cost to them, like childcare and other early childhood development supports might have a high cost to them. They were encountering providers that lack this cultural competency and bilingual staff who can communicate and reach out effectively to the Latino community. And as a result, PASOS decided that our goal would be to develop a network of local community health workers specializing in early childhood development to begin being the bridge in communities to start addressing these gaps and to try to also create sustainable long-term change. So these community health workers then would be located around the state in communities with high Latino populations. And out of this grew the PASOS Early Childhood Initiative, which eventually became our program that we now call today the Connections for Child Development Program. You can see on this slide, it talks a little bit here. Then the next step was in 2015, we got our first funding we're still on that same one, through the Lipscomb Foundation and the Children's Trust of South Carolina, which then allowed us to spend time shaping the program, training community health workers in early childhood development and beginning to hire staff and structure the program. In 2019, we earned a Promising Practice Award from the Association of Maternal and Child Health Programs. And today in 2023, we have a team of 12 community health workers statewide, and we're growing. And we are continuing to constantly ask questions, collect our data, and hear from our families to find out how we can continue to serve them and continue to hear their voices and connect them to the resources that they need. The last slide shows a little bit more about the nitty-gritty of how our program works. And I will talk about this more in our breakout session, but our community health workers are conducting in-home evidence-based developmental screenings in partnership with families to help and through doing that, really working with providing education and support to families around what does early childhood look like, what should we be expecting from our children in those first 5 years of life, and just constantly having an open and ongoing dialogue with families around what are their needs and how they can access the resources that do exist in their communities. And especially when we do have find that there are children in need who have developmental concerns, where our community health workers are there to connect the families for those resources for early intervention, for therapies in the case that the child needs additional support to be ready to thrive and be successful in school once they hit age 5. So we'll talk more about that in our breakout session. And again, our long-term goal is for our community health workers to create this long-lasting and sustainable bridges and connections for Latino families across the state.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Leslie. It's always nice to hear about the programs. You know, I've been with PASOS for 7 years. So yeah, it's always exciting to hear how things are going in the history again. It's a nice refresher. So definitely, all y'all keep in mind that you get to select a speaker to talk to during the breakout session. So bring your questions, bring your, hey, I've been doing this with my program, or I want to get this started. So think about which one has that kind of like specialty that you could really pull on, because everybody here is an expert, and just definitely utilize this opportunity. So next up, we have Ashley Thomas from the Hive. And Ashley Thomas is the founder and executive director of the Hive Community Circle, a South Carolina-based survivor network committed to preventing relationship and sexual abuse for young women and teen girls of color. As a lifelong advocate and survivor of sexual abuse, Ashley draws from her own experience, in addition to her academic and professional background, to help other survivors reclaim their mental health, self-worth, and sense of autonomy in their lives. With a natural skill for problem solving, developing fresh ideas, and mobilizing people and resources to effect positive change, Ashley earned a BA in psychology from Columbia College and a master's of social work from the University of Washington. It's an honor to have you, Ashley, and kick it off.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm definitely happy to be here. And thank you so much, Mike, for the introduction. And so I am going to be speaking to you all today on organizational capacity and board impact. And so being someone who has worked with nonprofits on an administrative level, but also in starting one, understanding the importance of how valuable it is to really leverage, as I believe it was Vanessa who talked about some of the, what was it she said that I took note of it, Vanessa, because I wanted to make sure. She said bridging assets, knowledge, and resources. And so when it comes to that, how do you leverage that as an organization, as a leader, and then how do you leverage your own as a member of a board? And so that is what we are going to speak to briefly. So you can go ahead, Mike. Thank you. And so just to share a little bit about me, so I am a healing justice advocate. That means that I have dedicated and committed my life to ensuring that others who have experienced sexual assault, domestic or intimate partner violence, as well as stalking, are able to engage on their journey of healing. And so I advocate in spaces both far and wide for individuals to be able to do that. I'm also a wellness-centered foodie. So that means that I love to eat, I love to cook, but I also love to work out, right? Because two got to go hand in hand. I'm also the mother of 3 children, and I'm committed to advancing equity for all women and girls globally. So this photo is actually, I'm currently an Aspen Fellow, and I get to serve alongside 18 women from around the globe, where we're all committed to advancing equity for women and girls. So that's just a little bit about me. And then, of course, the Hive, as you've been able to hear, we are a statewide peer advocacy organization. We work with survivors, again, of sexual assault, intimate partner violence, and stalking across the state of South Carolina. And I'll be able to talk a little bit more in regards to the depth of our services. But one of the things that I wanted to make sure that I shared, just to kind of lay the foundation, is when we're talking about boards and understanding, you know, what is a board, why is a board important, is understanding that there are 3 main tenets of a board, and that's the governance, that's your strategic direction, and then that's accountability. And governance is really looking at, is the organization running the way that it's supposed to be running? Are things operating in a very smooth manner? Is the organization in compliance with everything that it's supposed to be doing? And then also the financial responsibility and the oversight. And so one of the things that oftentimes I remember hearing people say when it comes to boards, it's like, oh, I don't do fundraising. That's not my thing, right? But, you know, again, it's about leveraging those resources. And so maybe it may not be fundraising, but it's grant writing, or maybe it's you're a connector and it's connecting people to that organization that you're passionate about as a board member, but the executive director being the one that makes the ask. And so, but the one of the primary reasons for board members is to oversee the financial sustainability of an organization. And oftentimes this is something that where passion can get in the way, and sometimes people don't really understand that this is something that I am held liable to and I'm responsible for. And then strategic direction. Do you really understand the mission and the purpose of the organization that you're wanting to volunteer within this capacity? And do you understand how your own life's work aligns with that, right? And so how does your skill, your passion align with the vision and the mission to drive impact within this organization, right? So what is your personal why? What is that organizational why? And where do those two meet? That is truly where you're able to see impact come through within an organization in ways that we've been able to see it be very successful here at the Hive. And then lastly, it's accountability. So are all board members and staff, are they carrying out their duties and their responsibility? That's something that you have to be willing to be comfortable with, holding other people accountable. And sometimes it's not all we're community, we're friends, and it's great. We can be those things, but we still have to hold one another accountable at the same time. And then also the commitment to the community and those the organization serves. I always say that it's a disservice that when community organizations, nonprofits, you exist to serve the community, yet the relationship that organizations may have with the community is broken, or it's been harmed, or it doesn't exist, right? And so everything that an organization does should always be driven and informed by those that it is there to serve. It should never be that an organization is rolling out programming, rolling out events in the community, securing funds to do things, but no one in the community is aware, or no one in the community is connected or a part of what's actually being done. On the last slide, we'll talk about this more so in the breakout, but it's really examining the relationship between an organization's capacity and board functioning. So what does it mean to be a working board versus a governance board, and how those things, those paradigms can shift throughout the lifeline of that organization. So that is what we're going to be talking about. For those of you that are interested in engaging in that capacity within the community. And so thank you all again, and I look forward to those who join.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ashley, for that information. Especially, I love how everything is just specific, right? So now we have these really strong areas of focus from these presentations for all y'all. I'm going to create breakout rooms. I'm going to open them right now. You get to choose which speaker from today's presentations you would like to talk to, and come with questions. And yeah, we've talked about specific aspects to give you a variety of specialties, but at the same time, if you have interest, just go in and bring whatever questions you have, get to know people, network, this is your opportunity to share and learn and grow. So when you go in, make sure somebody identifies themselves as a reporter and somebody as a note taker, because what we would like is afterwards a 5-minute share out of just kind of what the general conversation was, any big takeaways, anything that you think other people might want to know that came out of those discussions. But they're going to be lively. Every room is going to be great. And I think Kim and I will probably pop in and out and visit. But yes, please select a breakout room, and we will give you guys somewhere between 20 and 25 minutes, and we will see you guys when we get back. All right, everyone, thank you so much for participating, interacting. Thank you again to our speakers for speaking and engaging these conversations. This part right now, we are hoping to have a breakout group share. So I'm just gonna pop this slide up real quick just to remind everybody we're doing group share right now. If we have somebody who did the reporting and the note taking, please raise your hand or just start talking. We'll start with Vanessa's room, and we're going to keep this to 5 minutes per breakout session. So who would like to speak on behalf of Vanessa's room? Oh, and Ashley, I don't think can continue with the full webinar. So thank you again, Ashley. And it's an honor to collaborate with you as always.
Thank you, Mike. And I have a few more minutes where I can hang on. So
okay, then let's do.
But thank you so much.
Let's start with yours then. Let's start with the Hive breakout session, since you're here.
Okay.
Who was
I was
the
just
reporter?
getting ready to message Kim. We didn't have a titled reporter.
Okay.
So I was
Well, if
going
you,
to see if Kim, if you wouldn't mind being able to do that. Is that okay?
and I see Rebecca raising her hand. Rebecca, were
Oh,
you in?
Rebecca can do it.
Yeah,
Thank you, Rebecca.
Ashley, I'm happy to.
Oh,
I
thank
took
you.
some notes.
Awesome.
I found Ashley's presentation very insightful, especially as kind of the group that I'm working with is relatively new and getting off the ground. So really having a better understanding of that governance in the board and how to integrate that. And it was just interesting how we talk about how this really aligns with the mission and values of an organization and how that kind of changes with the organization as they develop over time. So how the needs of a grassroots program might be very different to an established program. And kind of just how early on in an organization those needs are going to be a lot greater. So that's really where the working board kind of comes into play. And I really thought it was, I'm just kind of looking back at my notes, but how you have to be really intentional as a leader at that process and at the beginning of those grassroots and really identify the needs of your organization and aligning that with the strategic plan and seeking out those community members that are doing that work. And something also just the expectations of a working board. So I think Ashley mentioned time, talent, and treasure. So you're kind of coming with an ask, but the people that are on your board are 100% invested in the work that you're doing, and that aligns with their beliefs. And I think something else that was brought up that I think is really important, I feel like a lot of people are doing grant work here maybe in this space. So making sure that your work is not just going towards funding driven, that you're aligning with your mission as well. And we also discussed how do you keep your work involved with not just the board, but your community too. We had someone kind of saying how I think it's easy for the board to just come up with these ideas when they're working together, but how do we connect this back to the community? And Ashley really mentioned how that's so important in making sure your partners within the community are informed and brought into that process. I think those are kind of my main takeaway. Or another huge component was just the importance of building relationships and making sure that your board members feel valued. So those true, genuine relationships with individuals, since they are such an integral part of your organization and board. So that's kind of what I have, if anyone else wants to add.
Thank you, Rebecca, because I was in and out, but I did hear a lot of it. But one thing I will add to that is someone asked a question about how do you keep board engagement up? Because sometimes, well, in this case, where they've transitioned from a working board to a more governance board, sometimes they feel not as connected to the work. So I like what Ashley shared about the stories. At each board member, at board meeting, they share impact stories so that the board members feel connected to the work and are constantly reminded of why they're doing what they're doing and being connected to the work. So I thought that was really good to keep them engaged, and that way they feel like they really know what's going on the ground.
Awesome. Yeah. Any final words you wanted to add about the breakout session, Ashley?
No, it was great. Thank you all so much again. And y'all, yeah, my reporters were amazing. Rebecca and Kim, y'all did it all. So I don't have anything else to add. I added my contact information in there. So if anyone else wants to, be able to reach out, but no, this was really great. And I hope that it will continue to, I think it was nice to hear people who work in organizations, but also who serve in the community, and really seeing like organizations in these different places, right? And like trying to figure out, like as a team member, where do we fit into this and how do we work with the board in this aspect, but also as a community member, right? Like, what does this look like for me when I see certain things happening or shifting within an organization or on a board? So it was just great to see all the different nuances and ways in which individuals, you know, experience board engagement. So in that lifespan of an organization. So it was great.
Awesome. And thank you for lending your experience and your expertise and sharing and communicating all of that with everyone. I'm sure they benefited from it greatly. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank y'all.
All right.
All right.
So we will go back to revisiting with Nessa. Nessa, did you have a reporter and a note taker?
Yes, we did have a reporter, a note taker, Ms. Iris, as well as an amazing timekeeper. Yes, she did. Make sure we stayed on point. So yes, and someone else, if they want to join in to share, I'm certain she did capture everything. That'd be great.
I got most of it. So with Miss Vanessa's group, we talked about community engagement, kind of using the metaphor of baking a cake. And a lot of us learned a lot of different substitutes to eggs. I'll put that out there because there are a lot more than I thought. But we started off with preheating, or really preparing to understand the community and our goals. And then we moved to our ingredients. So we had to make sure, you know, everything mixed together well, and every ingredient is important when you're talking about community engagement, like active listening. And someone in our group mentioned a great line that the cake is the full picture, but the ingredients individual still matter. So we talked about different niches, how we develop a reputation, kind of moving into baking. Baking requires requires action. I liked how Vanessa said, you can't sit on this couch and bake a cake. So you have to be out there and you have to network. We mentioned job shadowing and advocacy. Really being the voice of the community and knowing who you're speaking to and what you're speaking about. And of course, nothing can be done without trust. So if you are trying to get out there in the community and you don't know what you're doing, or or you're not building those relationships, no one will trust what you have to say. So after that, we moved to delivery and implementation, really presenting that nice cake and putting the icing on it for our communities.
Awesome. Great recap. Anything else
Thank you so much.
Anything else you want to add to that, Nessa?
I don't think I need to add anything else. It's just very important that we know what our contributions are and know what our value is. We don't have to wait for someone else to tell you. Understand, you know, what you are doing in the community in order for it to thrive. And it requires each of us to do that. So it was a great conversation. It went so quickly, you know, that 30 minutes. So we'll certainly be interested just to see exactly some feedback and what has happened. I'd love to hear that, but this is great.
Yeah, and we will share the evaluation that we have afterwards that we get everybody to fill out. But yeah, thank you again for just bringing your spirit. I love your style. It's always fun to work with you. You bring such an extra element to this
Oh,
work.
wow. Well, thank you to everyone. Thank you so very much. It's been an honor.
Yeah. All right. So Leslie, who did you have in your room as your note taker or report out?
We had Stevie. Are you still there, Stevie? You ready?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right.
Thank you, Stevie.
Okay, so in our conversation, I feel like we talked a lot about a lot of different things, so I apologize if I didn't encompass it all. So if I missed anything, feel free to add anything at the end. But we talked a lot about the importance of community health workers and the qualifications that have been set to be one, and kind of the balance between remaining equitable and inclusive, while also having the needed requirements needed to be a community health worker. The state has created barriers due to greater education requirements. And so community health workers have to follow the qualities of what they're supposed to be. So they want lived experiences, being part of that specific population, oftentimes more so than higher education in that particular field, because sometimes it can be off-putting to the communities that community health workers serve. And we know the importance of community health workers and the connection to their community and being able to leverage those resources for better health outcomes. So we kind of just talked about the balance between what's needed to be a community health, like an effective community health worker for specific populations.
Awesome.
Yeah, we were talking specifically, Robert, you're from, did you say Mississippi, Robert? Is that where you were from? Yes, okay, got that right. Okay, Robert was talking about some barriers in Mississippi around specifically reaching the Vietnamese and the Latino communities in Mississippi, and just the importance for trust building in terms of reaching our communities and having our community health workers be members of the communities which they serve. And so that's something that for Robert, like being very, we were talking about just such an interest and a desire to serve our children, our families with young children in our states through what we know is an extremely effective model, but sometimes having to encounter barriers that are there sort of at a hiring level in the state level. We talked a lot, Julie, and talked a little bit about what that looks like as an organization to raise your voice and saying, this is what, a community health, these are the national requirements or the national sort of elements of what makes an effective community health worker, and raising our voice as organizations to affect that change within our state organizations. And if that's not working, to be creative in where we're looking for our funding sources to outside of the institution that might be putting up those barriers. And so I think specifically when speaking about reaching, we were talking about reaching underserved communities in each of our states. That's one of the most important things to do. And then towards the end of our conversation too, we also talked about the importance of seeking out organizations that are already serving the communities we're trying to target. So in Paso's case, the Latino and immigrant communities, and also for Robert's case, the Vietnamese community, and trying to find out, just to create those bridges between people who are already there and doing the work, and finding ways to open up those conversations and create effective partnerships between organizations, and hearing the voices of families and organizations already serving the folks that we're looking to serve as well. So we had a really good conversation, and thanks to all for participating.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I'll just add, at the end, we started talking about that piece of being in a trusted organization, and how do you handle some of those asks from organizations that are like, hey, we want to partner with your organization to reach this community because they don't trust us. And how do we handle that? And we didn't get a chance to really dig into it because we got brought into the main group. But one of the things that we've learned in our journey here at Pasos is that once a community trusts in your brand and in your organization, it's really important to safeguard that, and to be what sometimes we'll call trust brokers, and not just open the door wide to organizations who are like, hey, we want to reach this population, will you help us? And just open that door wide and be like, yes, you can access the population through us, which you certainly want to support connections and more organizations supporting these communities. But your branding and your trust is precious. And so if you've worked hard to establish that trust, you really want to make sure that those other organizations are going to do right by the community before you open that door. And it's critical because if, let's say that Pasos has a strong relationship with the rural Latino community in an area of our state, and a health department or another organization is like, hey, we want to offer these services, and Pasos just throws the door open wide. And then that community comes in and behaves in a way that is not right, like they don't speak their language, or they start asking their documentation statuses, or they, don't deliver on the services that they said they were going to provide, it then can damage PASO's trust with that community, because you've given that trust as a proxy and it could be damaged. And so really just thinking through, like, as members of communities or organizations that have those trusts, how do we respectfully be trust brokers and decide, yes, I can potentially hook you up or like help you make those connections, but I need to know what you're about. And I got a checklist for the things that I would need to know before connecting you. One of my big issues is researchers or organizations that want to come in and learn from the communities that we serve, but don't want to pay them for their knowledge. So if you're going to come in and like do a survey or ask questions, you better be ready to like pay for their time and their expertise, or if not, don't count on me to connect you. Because if they're coming forward, they deserve to get paid with what you're giving them, or you don't have the right to ask them. Because again, that's kind of one of my sticking points, but those important questions to ask before just kind of opening those doors.
This has been awesome. This has been super awesome. and I just love all the multiple voices, the interactiveness. I hope you guys have really gotten something from all of this, because there's so much wisdom in this room and I love the peer-to-peer kind of sharing that's going on here. That's what it's all about. We're going to learn from each other and keeping other new things in mind as we do that. So definitely, let's keep these conversations going. The contacts for our speakers will be available this presentation. I can actually put it in the slides in the chat so that you guys can access it right now. Here we go. You now have all the slides from today's presentations in the chat. It's loading right now. But at the end of when this call hangs up, you will be prompted to provide a evaluation of this webinar. This is the fourth and final of a 4-part webinar series. We've had a good time. If you've had a good time, tell us we need to keep this going, right? And if you have ideas of what we should be talking about and what you want to know more about, please tell us in the evaluation. We will do the work to pull in these awesome experts and get conversations started. That's what we're here to do. So please let us know what you thought of the webinar and what else we can do to make these better. And we will probably continue these on, but we need to hear your voice telling us that's what you want. So let's see here, wrapping up.
Yeah, there's a question in the chat, Mike, from Ann. And we have those recordings on our website.
Yes.
From the previous webinars, and I can drop that direct link into the chat.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Kim.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So this has been a webinar series that the Center for Community Health Alignment has been putting together with support from foundations such as the Sisters of Charity. And you can find the webinars on our website. And you can also follow us on social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, our own website, Twitter, like, follow, share. Please get the word out. We're here to collaborate. We're here to support. We're here to be, connectors. So we want to connect with you as well. Here are my contact and Kim's contact. And it's been an honor to be the host and facilitating with Kim on these webinars. It's been a great time for me and I've learned a lot, and I love just making connections and seeing people make connections. So anything else you want to say, Kim?
No, thank you all so much. And please follow us on our social media platforms so you can get the information that we'll be doing next. And another reminder, again, please complete that evaluation at the end when you log off of Zoom, because we're going to be reviewing what you say as we continue to plan what our next steps will be around meaningful community engagement. So thank you all so much for participating.
Thank you all. We'll see you at the next meeting.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Gracias.
Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
You too.
Bye.